guys, welcome back to the channel. Editing Miranda once more. When I started this video, I did not intend on splitting it into two parts as I mentioned in part one, so this will be part two, and I just wanted to come in here and do a little intro to let you know that that's what's happening. So if you are new here and you haven't seen part one, this won't really make sense unless you go back and watch that one. It kind of just dives right in right where we left off. So yeah, I just wanted to put in a little precursor, so now we will go back to regularly scheduled Miranda. The gigantic failure that is diet culture. I have my own story in regards to diet culture. I'm going to delve a little bit into it, maybe in another video, but we'll get to that in like a couple minutes. So, okay, I feel like I'm reading just a crapload from this book, but again, the way they phrase it is so eloquent, and it just helps. So, bear with me. Just like it is incredibly difficult to feel positively about your body when you're judging it based on looks, it is incredibly difficult to feel positively about your health when you are judging it based on looks. The body mass index was my best friend / enemy. It was my point that I always turned to because this just came up. One of my earliest memories of being ashamed of my body was in regards to We Fit. And if you didn't have We Fit, let's just summarize it as it was that thing with the board, and it was a game, and you could like run, bicycle, and it was using the Wii remote. So if you were running, you were just like jumping up and down in place and moving your arms, and your Mii would like run a trail. And if you were biking, you would like pedal. I was a whole thing. But basically there was this part of it though where there was a pad and you could use it for yoga, but it also had you create a health profile, and you stepped on the pad and it weighed you, and then it put your weight in and it gave you your BMI. And I remember I was a preteen and my BMI was obese, and I just remember looking at that, because then what it did, wow, I didn't realize how incredibly toxic this is until just this moment. Hey, so I just wanted to come back on here. I am in a different space and I am without my microphone, so sorry if the audio is a little bad. I wanted to clarify what I'm about to say in regards to the We Fit, because I realized it didn't come out in the kindest sense, and that was not my intention at all. So basically, I just want to preface everything by saying that size does not indicate health, and that it is completely bullshit, for lack of a better word, that the world and society treats certain people with more advantage and privilege simply because they are smaller and fit a more traditional beauty ideal. Ergo, fat phobia is real and it's bullshit, and that is not what I intended for this to come off as. So I just wanted to come in and make that point very clear, that this specific instance was traumatic for me in regards to my body image and the disruption I experienced. My explaining it had nothing to do with the idea that if you are in a bigger body or you weigh more or whatever, that somehow is an awful thing, because it's not. Basically, I hope that comes across, and that it was not my intention for it to come off as fat phobic, because I kind of worried that it would, and that is not what I meant at all. So I just wanted to come in and say that. So now we'll go back to my story, and I did keep the story in because I feel like it is important in regards to the overall point I was making. So yes, there we go. Holy cow, because what it did once my BMI was registered is it blew out my Mii character into this huge like balloon. And I'm not talking like, it just like, I just saw that, and it was the exact representation of how I saw myself versus apparently how this Wii game saw me, because I'd already put like, you can change how big or small you are in the Mii portal, and I'd already put what I thought I looked like, and the We Fit then took it and made me, and I went, oh my God, is that what I really look like? And I made the determination that day that I would get that BMI down. And I never did. But fast forward a couple years, 10 years, and the BMI was still in my head. I still remembered how I felt in that moment, and that was my gear that I found to continue in diet culture and to continue on trying my best to lose weight. And even after, because I had always had a goal weight in mind, which I'm sure many of us do, and even after I reached that, I was still high on the body mass index. And so I went, no, I need to push further. Even though I had already reached my supposed ideal weight, I was like, nope, not enough. So let's talk about the body mass index.
Hey, I'm back. So I just wanted to slip in here because I couldn't really think of a better place to slip this in, but I thought it was a definite must to include. And that is, I was in a eating disorder recovery group, and one of the women brought up a very valid point that has been incredibly empowering for me as someone who is recovered from an eating disorder, that when you go to the doctor's office and you get weighed, for the most part, that is completely voluntary. You do not have to be weighed. And you can say, I would prefer not to be weighed. And that is completely valid and completely, okay. And if you find a doctor that gives you shit about it, then you need to find a new doctor, because they are not going to understand you, your journey in regards to your weight and how that triggers you in the way that you need. And you deserve to be validated in that respect. You have the right to not be weighed at the doctor's office, period. And there are exceptions, but for the most part, you don't need to be weighed every time you go to the doctor's office. And you can say, I don't want to be weighed. And any good doctor will understand that that is okay. So I just wanted to put that in here, and now we'll continue.
To breeze through just a few issues with the standard BMI chart promoted by the CDC, it doesn't take gender into account, despite healthy levels of fat and weight distribution differing greatly between men and women. It is based on a Caucasian standard, though even the World Health Organization has acknowledged the extensive evidence that, quote, the associations between BMI, percentage of body fat, and body fat distribution differ across populations, end quote. It doesn't take age into consideration, so it doesn't allow for weight naturally and healthily increasing with age. It doesn't account for body frame or muscle mass, which leads to serious miscalculations of body fat. And Adolphe Quetelet, oh, I butchered that, the French scientist who developed the original height-to-weight ratio that would come to be known as the BMI, intended it for large diagnostic studies on general populations, not individuals. Despite promoting a personal BMI calculator to be used by individuals, the CDC website now states, quote, BMI can be used for population assessment of overweight and obesity. Because calculation requires only height and weight, it is inexpensive and easy to use for clinicians and for the general public. BMI can be used as a screening tool for body fatness, but is not diagnostic, end quote. So why, despite all the evidence against it, do federal health agencies and countless medical professionals continue to rely on BMI for helping individuals understand their health? So that's just a little bit on the BMI. That was one thing that I really had to come to terms with within myself, was to let that number go, because it's just not fact. There's no way that I will be healthy for my body. I will be healthy in the BMI range while actually being healthy within myself and my eating habits and the way I treat my body. It's just not a plausible thing to come together. And once you let go of the idea that the BMI is the end all be all, the know it all thing, decider of health or not, you really stop looking at your weight as such a decider of how you're doing in life. On top of all this, majority of diets don't work. It's just a fact. And you're pretty much guaranteed to gain all the weight that you lost back. There are scientific studies on that are mentioned in the book, but I've already read enough to you, so I'll take a break for a minute. Usually you gain all that you lost back, and usually then some. So you're gaining back what you already lost and more. And this idea that health only has one singular look is incredibly false and enforces the feeling of shame that women who don't fit the ideal feel when their diets fail, which is also like 99.9% of the women. Not an actual statistic, just an assumption. So there's this theory called the weight set point theory, which I will link a video about it below. And it basically explains that your body has an ideal weight. Your body is happy at some place. And that can increase the more you restrict food. So it can happen in which the more you restrict, the more your body's like, I need to hang on to what I'm being given. That can lead to your weight set point going up because your body's thinking that it needs more weight on you to keep you healthy. Because, yeah, it's a very bare bones explanation. Can get a little confusing, but the video I linked below, it's like 3 minutes long. It's like 3 minutes long, and she explained it very well. Good metaphor. There's a glass with green liquid in it. I recommend that if you watch any of the videos, that one was really eye-opening for me. They delve into this much deeper in the book, but I also wanted to mention the transformation mentality in diet culture and how it affects women and how it affected me. This is where I will delve into my story of eating disorders. So if you haven't clicked away already, and this could be a trigger, please click away because I will talk about it. There's this idea enforced by before and after photos that health is a visual transformation. And while in some cases it can be, for a lot of people it just isn't. And that's the case for me. When I decided to get healthy, that included restricting myself to eating 2 RX bars, one for breakfast, one for lunch, and then I ended up binging on dinner. And I lost a lot of weight this way. And I got a ton of compliments. But I also developed multiple eating disorders, lower self-esteem, and I reached a point where I was only allowing myself to eat, and I wasn't exercising, and I was going to dangerous extremes when my body said it had enough of starvation to keep the number of the scale going down. And if I wasn't losing upwards of 2 pounds in a day, I was having anxiety attacks because I thought I was failing, and I was wondering what I could have done wrong, and just that whole dark hole that you can fall down. But because I was thinner, to everyone, I was therefore healthier, but I wasn't. I just wasn't. And imagine my age of depression in the midst of recovering from those eating disorders when I gained almost all of the weight back and the compliments stopped coming. And this was when I decided that there had to be just another way, that I was not going down the path that I had just been on, because I was already exhausted and done, because I just couldn't take that BS anymore. So there's also this idea that I never really thought about, but and they say it in the book, so I will quote the book. Your before will be someone else's after. Your after will be... Is this getting annoying? Your after will be someone else's before. Sharing these images online guarantees the possibility of hurting people you never intended to hurt and hurting your future self. This idea that the before and after, it just really sets pretty much everybody up for failure, because I look at my before pictures, and if I'm looking at my before pictures, first off, it's just leading to me self-objectifying, because then I end up comparing my before picture to who I am now, and then I end up looking at my body like, oh, do I see differences? Which is just not a great thing to do, especially for someone recovering from eating disorders. So don't recommend that. But then also, I look at my after picture, and my after picture is when I was in the midst of my eating disorders and was skinnier than I am now. And that only triggers me, because then a part of me is like, you're a failure, even though I'm not. And I know I'm not, but that can still happen. And so those things that I thought would be great tools of motivation and a prize at the end of all of it, this thing that I could, like this trophy that I could hang over my head and be like, look, I did it. I beat the system. I did what everybody's been telling me to do. It just didn't do anything. All it did was cause harm. Only now, after recovery and finding these resources, have I put all that effort that I was focusing on my weight into loving my body where I'm at. And I cook for myself more now, and I really savor the taste of food and the goodness it brings to my body, and I'm more likely now, more than ever, to get my body moving, unapologetically. And I do things that I actually enjoy, like dancing or walking instead of high intensity interval training that makes me cry, because the goal is to enjoy myself and what I can do with my body while having fun. And the goal is not to burn as many calories as possible. And this isn't to bash anybody who like loves traditional gym exercises or HIIT workouts. That just was not my thing, and I was forcing myself to be miserable by pushing through because I thought that was the only way to get the body I wanted. And that has always been a source of shame for me, that I couldn't like power through and I wasn't strong enough to hang on to like those things. Anyways, a couple more quotes. Okay, so this is a quote within the book by Glenn A. Geyser, who is an exorcist, who is an exercise science researcher at Arizona State University. So she says, and I quote, "Our current focus on weight loss has been an abject failure. During the past 40 years or so, Americans have collectively undergone more than 2 billion weight loss attempts, mostly by dieting. Yet during the same time, obesity prevalence has tripled. Not only has dieting not worked, it may have contributed to the increased prevalence of obesity." Focusing on fitness rather than fatness is well proved to decrease risks of numerous diseases and disorders. Doctors who care to explore a person's health beyond their weight know this is true. When people with serious health issues like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and high blood pressure start a meaningful exercise program, their health problems often disappear or greatly improve, regardless of whether or not they remain classified as overweight or obese. And there's actually a video about this. There's a TED Talk that a woman did that I found, that I will also link below, that really goes into the science behind that. And I also recommend that. I believe it's like 7 or 11 minutes long. Christy Harrison, registered dietitian and author of Anti-Diet: Reclaim Your Time, Money, Well-Being, and Happiness Through Intuitive Eating, calls our culture's dieting obsession, aka diet culture, quote, the life thief. She writes, quote, "Dieting is against your best interests. It puts you at war with yourself and takes your energy away from fighting so many more important battles. It makes you doubt yourself and feel like you can't trust your own instincts. It gaslights you into thinking that you're the, quote, failure because you couldn't stick to the diet du jour. Because you had the audacity to get hungry, to need nourishment and pleasure, to need the things we all need. That's abuse, and yet the life thief is an expert in getting us to perpetuate it on ourselves again and again and again." So that's pretty much all I have to say about diet culture, but this book has a lot more to say. Body positivity and the body positivity movement. I don't know why I'm getting so grand. While body positivity has done a lot for women and representation of different bodies in the media, and it helped me a lot in my journey with that, this book brought a lot of valid points up in regards to the movement, and they had some serious moments that just made me go, whoa. So again, back to the book. I'm gonna have to cut out so much of this and I'm gonna be so sad. So this is a chopped up selection of quotes of what they had to say about body positivity. I highly encourage to read. "Unfortunately, even with the reminders to love and accept your body as it looks right now, you are still stranded in the waters of objectification. Expanded ideas of which bodies are considered beautiful or acceptable are still keeping a focus on how those bodies look, which keeps us bogged down with the burden of self-objectification, even if we like how we look." I hadn't really thought of it that way before. Sure, the intention behind a body positivity post is very different from the intention behind a standard objectifying image of a sexualized female body meant to be consumed by others. But if you take away the inspirational caption, it is more of the same. Female bodies being bared, shared, compared, evaluated, and ogled. Validating and appreciating the diversity of bodies that exist, while inclusive and helpful on the one hand, still centers the appearance of women's bodies as their most important feature. This approach still depends on women being awarded arbitrary points for what their bodies look like, just with expanded guidelines for what counts as worthy of displaying or consuming. We love seeing body diversity in media and at the pool or beach. Everyone deserves to swim and to be comfortable while doing so, but pretty much no one asks men to prove their confidence by posting Speedo pics on Instagram. Well, straight men, that is. Gay men face similarly heightened body pressures as women do online and off, with much of the origin both traceable to the sexualized male gaze of who is doing the looking, evaluating, and consuming, regardless of the gender of the person being consumed. In a world of objectification, revealing more of our bodies online might feel like the truest path to liberation and empowerment. But we disagree. We want inclusion and representation, not equal opportunity objectification. Women eagerly consume other women's bodies in media in an attempt to validate their own worthiness to be consumed. So, those are just a couple of the ones. There's a lot more. I know that seemed like a lot, but there's a lot more that made me stop and go, because this isn't something that I had honestly been focusing on or really thought about in my journey thus far, and it's definitely something I'm thinking about now. There's a lot there. So, how do we move on from objectification and the crap that comes with it? Obviously, as I've said 1,000 times in this video, this book delves into this so much. It's essentially the point of the book. It's the plot. And in such detail, believe it or not, more than what I've shared. And I want to go over some basics of the tools that they give so that you can get the gist of where they're coming from, and then hopefully either decide to get the book or decide that it might not be for you right now. The idea of letting go of your ideal self is one thing that they talk about a lot, and they see that as one way to help you really just accept where you are right now and know that that's enough, that you are worthy as you are right now. And this terrified me because I would very much, my ideal self was how I felt in control. And it just felt terrifying to let go of all of that control that I thought I had. I didn't really have it, but that I thought I had. And I was just left feeling almost like bereft, if that's the right word, of just like, if I'm not this, if I'm not this ideal version of myself, how do I get the fame, the fortune, the attention? And where does that come from if I just decide that I'm worthy as I am right now? And this process took a lot of time and a lot of self-reflection and being able to look at yourself, the good and the bad, as you unpack all the belief systems at play that kept you stuck in the cycle of believing that you weren't already your ideal self in that moment. We're always a work in progress, and it's good to want to grow and to learn and to evolve, but none of those things have to do with how you look. Those are all internal experiences. And they mention this framework of body image resilience that they found through researcher Glenn Richardson, in which after a body image disruption, which is a moment in which you are living your life in your body, bopping along, and then all of a sudden you view your body and it's shaken up out of your normal viewing. So there is a moment in the book where I think it's Lexie, it might be Lindsay, I apologize if I get that wrong, but where Lindsay, we'll go with Lindsay, where Lindsay was asked to go swimming, and she loved swimming, but she found that she didn't want to go because she didn't want to be seen in her bathing suit. That is an example of a body image disruption. So you have three main options when you have a body image disruption, and one of them is sinking into shame, or you can go back to where you're comfortable, aka the diets, the quick fixes, all of those things, or you can decide to just confront the disruption and what you're feeling and really try and find the root of it. For instance, with Lindsay, the root of hers was that she felt that she wasn't a body that should be in a swimsuit. So it's just things like that. Self-compassion is a great way to really kind of let go of the ideal self, because I just imagined, and this will tie into my next point, I just imagine there's a little version of me inside myself that was just crying because in this case, let's just go with the example, because she wanted to go swimming, and I was like, no, we can't go swimming because we're not worthy of going swimming. And having the self-compassion to go inside and push aside that invalid view that we're unworthy to be seen in a swimsuit, and go and hold that little version inside yourself and say, let's go swimming. That is really a pivotal thing as far as healing. And that's essentially what inner child work is. And they delve into inner child work in the book. And I talked about it in my highly sensitive person video. Go watch that if that intrigues you. And I do want to do a in-depth just video on inner child work. And there's actually a lot of resources. I will link one below, Candice Vandell. She's a really good resource for highly sensitive people and people who are interested in inner child work and how that goes. But inner child work is incredibly beneficial for loving yourself in your entirety and for your body image and healing that wound within yourself. It is a great tool of finding compassion for yourself in this process. Another aspect of it is spirituality, which they, again, word really well. Though everyone might reach entirely different conclusions through entirely different beliefs and practices, the simple act of exploring a sense of self beyond the physical can provide comfort and greater perspective to many people. Objectification reduces people to the physical, the observable. Spirituality can counter that force with an emphasis on the parts of ourselves that are invisible but connected to greater meaning and power. Obviously, spirituality was a major part in my journey, but I fully expect and understand that it's not a part of everybody's journey. So they also have that in here for you if you're not spiritual. What is important to you? How are you best equipped to do good in the world, to lead in ways that people need? What can you contribute that brings happiness, light, and peace to the world? Another thing that kind of ties into my story with eating disorders is changing how you give and receive compliments. And this is probably the hardest habit to break. And it's kind of awkward to do, but I think can be one of the most beneficial for you and those around you. Sometimes it can be nice to be complimented on how you look, and there's no shame in that. There's no shame in wanting to be seen as beautiful and wanting to be seen. There's no shame in that. And I hope that's not like how this is coming off, because that's not how I mean it and that's not how they mean it. But learning to relish more in compliments about who you are and not how you appear. And that goes the same way for like giving compliments, complimenting more on who a person is and not how they look to you is just really a beneficial thing. If you think about someone that has added value to your life, more often than not, it has nothing to do with them being pretty scenery. And I know for me, compliments on my skills, the way I connect or what I bring to someone's life that they enjoy, leave a much more lasting joy than if someone said I looked nice. So for example, if a friend says I'm a good listener, and that is something that they appreciate about me, no matter how I look, whether I'm done up with makeup or wearing a designer dress or anything, I will always be seen and feel seen as a good listener to someone I value in my life. But if that same person told me I looked beautiful while I was wearing makeup and a designer dress, as soon as I took off that dress and removed that makeup, do I feel as beautiful? No, because they didn't compliment me when I wasn't wearing those things. That compliment was conditional on me wearing those things as far as I'm perceiving it. That may not be how that person who complimented me meant it, but it's how it's perceived. Do I worry that they only see my beauty when it's all done up? Yes. But that's just an example, and it's a very simplified one, but I hope it gets the point across of what I'm trying to say. Compliments can also do more damage than good, like I mentioned with my weight loss and eating disorder journey, as well as with like the before and after picture thing. The people that complimented me in the midst of my eating disorders unknowingly were enforcing life-threatening behaviors that I then felt justified participating in because I was getting that outward validation that I wanted, that I needed, or felt I needed. So you never know what someone's going through, and you never know how that specific compliment can trigger them. And it's an easy switch to be able to do to just choose not to compliment a person on their appearance unless you are intimate with them and their life and know whether or not that will be a trigger for them. That is another way. And then one of the last tools that I want to share is this tool of intuitive eating. And they mention it in the book. And it's a concept pioneered by Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch. I haven't read the book, but it was referenced a lot and used in my eating disorder recovery program. And it really taught me to not see food as my enemy and to really love the experience of eating without shame and to find satisfaction in food and how to feel that and to really enjoy food and not use it as a tool of control, as diet culture usually points to. It helped me work with my brain and my body to stop the cycles of binging and instead listening to my body's cues of when I'm hungry and when I'm full and nourishing it as needed. This really tied in with my inner child work because I felt like I was reteaching myself how to eat. And I was really being that teacher to that inner version of me that felt the urge and the need to binge and restrict. That's about it for the book. I do want to conclude with a couple more quotes that really hit for me but didn't really fall into any of the categories of what we went through. So blogger Erin McKean wrote on her site A Dress a Day, quote, "Prettiness is not a rent you pay for occupying a space marked female." The opponent is not mainstream beauty ideals. Beauty ideals suck and they're as unattainable as ever. They'll always be here, but it's objectification that holds them in power. We are grateful to see the many activists, influencers, and social media users who have moved forward with an awareness of whether they want to focus on only fighting for women's bodies to be viewed as valuable or move toward fighting for women to be valued as more than bodies to view. So one of my favorite things that I got from this book is another quote, which is, "Realize you are a human being, not just a human being looked at." And I think that that's actually a really strong mantra to hold if you are struggling with self-objectification. It's just a good one-liner to keep in your brain, and it ties in with that consumability factor. The goal shouldn't be to shun and judge everyone and everything that reflects objectifying ideas and images, but to instead make informed, critical, conscious choices about how you engage with such messages. And this is something that I wholeheartedly agree with. It is just really important, and I hope that that's what you gathered from this video. It's not me trying to point at and judge and say, here's all the ways you're doing this wrong. It's just my goal with this is to really point the light at all the ways you've been lied to and all the ways that women have been forced into this box of beauty ideals and objectification, and how they have just created this perfect storm of just toxicity and suppression and shame. And I just really wanted to shine a light on it because once I realized this, it really, truly set me free and allowed me to stand in my power of who I am without apology. They also mention this in the book about the rage and the anger that you may feel when you start disentangling the web of this and really realizing all of the energy, money, effort, and things that you've put into diet culture and unrealistic beauty ideals and all of this stuff and all the pain and rage that you can feel. It is so good to let yourself feel rage in the midst of this healing and recognizing all the ways that you have been gaslit and manipulated into a life in which your purpose was that of your body and constantly fixing it to prove your worth. Like, that should make you angry. That should upset you. And those feelings are valid. And if you find that you're just sad or that you're not really able to tap into any emotion, that's also valid too. Everybody's journey is valid as long as you just honor yourself and listen to yourself. That includes those extreme emotions like rage. It's okay to feel that. I felt that. I screamed into my pillow. I spent nights ranting at nobody because I needed to get these words of how I was feeling out. And journaling can be good for that, but if you're not a journaler, just rant, just talk, and just let yourself feel heard by yourself. Like, you are a great resource for yourself and your healing. And when you recognize that and you trust yourself to be there for your own healing, it's just a great thing. You can take that anger and you can let it fuel your healing and push back against all of those systems and all of those people and businesses and things that kept you stuck and in pain for so long. And releasing objectification and the intense pressure that comes along with it takes time. So also, if you do start this journey, if this somehow got the ball rolling, I'm so glad that I was a part of it. But if it's also just a little reminder, then it's like, just remind yourself to be patient. I'm still in that journey, and this is years in the making. And I'm very young. I wasn't entrenched in diet culture as long as, say, my mom has been. Like, it takes time to disentangle yourself from all of these ways that you have been held down. Have patience and have grace with yourself, and understand that you are doing it. You are healing, no matter how murky or how hard it can feel sometimes. As long as you are listening to yourself and honoring yourself, you're doing it. And doing this and pushing through that is so incredibly freeing. Like, this book and the message that Lindsay and Lexie Kite are working to spread was such a tool for me in just the little bit that I knew from the podcast that I heard. And I can't imagine if I had had this entire book in the midst of my healing, how much of a greater effect it would have had in learning a relationship with myself, healing that relationship with myself, and also just in the work of healing with my eating disorders. This book, I promise I did not read all of it to you. There is so much in here for anybody who has had any sort of body issue. And whether you are a female or male, or identify as one or the other, or identify as neither, there's something in here. It is geared towards women. It is written towards women. But if you've ever felt objectified, there's something in here for you. So yeah, I hope that this video, that you stuck through it. And I know it was a long one, and I appreciate you if you did stick with it and that you listened to all that I had to say in regards to this. And I hope that you find healing through it. That's just my hope. That's my greatest hope. I am also, though, I did want to mention, I'm reading this book. It's called Mothers, Daughters, and Body Image: Learning How to Love Ourselves as We Are. And it's written by Hilary McBride. I'm a little less than halfway through it. I originally was going to do these two in tandem as one video. Now I realize that would have been doomed anyways, because this video was so long. This covers a lot of what's already in More Than a Body, but it just delves in more succinctly into the relationship of how daughters learn from their mothers, body image, and all of that stuff. I haven't decided. I might do a separate video with this, but I did want to mention it just in case you are thirsty after you read More Than a Body and you want more, that this is a pretty good one. I'm not 100% sold on it, but I would say that if this has been a specific dynamic in your body image journey and in your journey with self, having like your mother relationship, then I would really recommend this. So that was so many words. I drank this entire cup of water. My butt hurts and my feet are so asleep. Okay, I'm going to end this now. So I will end this with a paraphrase from the book. You are not a decoration. Simple as that. You are meant to be more. Thank you for tuning in and watching. Again, I will link all of the resources that I possibly can down below. If you just want to go on this journey and you are just thirsty for information, I will link all that down below. Thanks for tuning in. If you like hearing my voice and you're not tired of it yet, I would love for you to subscribe. If you are tired of me, that's okay too. It's all good. So, yeah. Bye. Because I just finished recording the video and I remembered an important question that I wanted to ask that really helped me. And yes, this is my microphone. And that was, who benefits from women being pitted against themselves and pitted against each other? Do you? I don't. And so really asking that question, who benefits from that? Whether you are someone who is outwardly like offensive towards women or anything, like, it's just in general, like, who benefits from the competition of women? Because it's not women. So there you go. That was my last minute thought. Also, I'm going to see if I can capture this. Hold on. Do you see that? Look at that sunset. Like, look at that. That is so beautiful. Oh, camera, I guarantee, is not doing it justice, but I wanted to share. So that's all.